send it to you if you didn't find it. Once you find it.
Oh, I didn't send it. Or it's okay.
You know it for all that.
Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, October 16th, and I would ask that you please rise. Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the approval of our minutes from our October 2nd meeting.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion we approve those minutes as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion passes. Paula, presentation of accounts payable.
Mr. President, I'd like to recommend the claims from October 5th through October 16th, 2023 be approved without exception.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Payroll.
Mr. President, I'd also like to recommend the payroll dated October 13th, 2023 be approved without exception.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Good morning, Stuart.
Just have one item today. Excuse me. It's a temporary right-of-way parcel, David and Connie Shoemaker, parcels 3 and 3A for Bridge 527. This is on Old 231 over Wildcat Creek. It's one of the last parcels. It's in the amount of $1,000.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion we approve the this temporary highway easement grant for Bridge 527 project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the temporary highway easement grants. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stu.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The first item is WIC is changing one part-time position to a full-time position, the clinic assistant. This was approved by council and was included in their state for the new budget, in their state new budget, sorry.
So, Mr. President, I move to approve this position change from part-time to full-time for WIC as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to make the suggested change from part-time to full-time for the clinic assistant. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
My second item is approval for the 2024 holiday schedule.
And I'm trying to remember, for the record, do we go through we accept the document as a whole, or do we go through and state what the dates are?
I think you've always just accepted it as a whole unless there was some kind of change or something specific you wanted to point out.
Well, I think one of the changes is we brought the election days back in for next year.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion we approve the 2024 holiday schedule as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the 2024 holiday schedule as submitted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sadie.
Just had the amendment to the lease agreement, what is it, 101 North 4th Street.
Okay. So remind me, we already did the one lease for the one office space, and this adds the second office and the conference room space?
This will total 4 office spaces.
4 office spaces.
3
okay.
offices and 1 kind of conference room, multiple offices.
Okay. And again, all of this is eligible for the reimbursement?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I think one of those office spaces won't come online until they're estimating December 1st, and
Yep.
the rent will be adjusted for that.
Okay. Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we approve this amendment to the lease agreement for the public defender.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And for Commissioner Byers.
We have a lease agreement between GDB Farms. This is for the tillable ground there at the county farm, the villa. It is a one-year lease agreement. It's for 122 acres. And saying that, Mr. President, I move that we approve this lease agreement with GDB Farms.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the lease agreement with GDB Farms. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Then we also have a lease agreement between Horseman Cattle Company, LLC. This is for all the pasture acres and the buildings there at the villa. It's 38.32 acres. This is a 3-year lease agreement. Saying that, I move that we approve this lease agreement with Horseman Cattle Company.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The motion passes.
Next, we have an MOU with Greater Lafayette Commerce and our regional partners for Ready 2.0. Our Ready regional partners will be the same as we've had for Ready 1.0, with the addition of Montgomery County, the city of Crawfordsville, and Wabash College will all be parties or partners in the agreement. So we're looking forward to getting started on Ready 2.0. With that, I'll make a motion, we approve this MOU.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Ready MOU. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Who's doing this? Is that yours?
So we have an MOU between the Sheriff's Office and the Tippecanoe School Corporation. This is something that is approved on an annual basis. Basically outlines the SRO agreement, the School Resource Officer Program, and the school corporation will fund $110,000 towards the salaries for the deputies assigned to the 2 high schools, $55,000 for each deputy. All the remaining costs for training, vehicle, and equipment is covered by the Sheriff's Office.
Mr. President, I will make the motion, we approve this MOU for the high school resource officer agreement with TSC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the MOU with TSC. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Doug, a transfer agreement with TSC?
Yeah, I gave you my copies, but this is a transfer agreement presented to us by TSC. It's essentially an offer that they approved at their meeting last Wednesday, whereby they would acquire 99 acres from the county. This is land that is to the east and south of the villa primarily. It's the cropland that Gary Brown's currently farming, and the offer price was $1,850,000. And the procedure is simplified because it's a transfer from one governmental unit to another. If it's to a private organization, there's more steps in the process, but in this case, it would be a matter of approving this agreement, and then there's a due diligence process, and then before the end, both you and TSC would have to approve resolutions that are substantially the same, and a form of those resolutions are part of this transfer agreement.
Well, and obviously, they are a growing school corporation, one of the fastest growing in the state, and a lot of development in the northwest part of the county, so it does make perfectly good sense. They will need land at some point in time in the future, and we have it. So, again, we're pleased to be able to move forward with the process. Any comments from the board?
No, I totally agree. It's ground for potentially another school versus 400 more houses. So yes, I totally agree on that. And so in saying that, Mr. President, I move that we approve this transfer agreement with TSC for the potential swap of ground.
I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second for the transfer agreement that was outlined by council. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion passes. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning. This morning, I'd like to ask permission for the Surveyor's Office, the WOW program, to apply to the Duke Energy Foundation for supplies needed for their program in 2024.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we grant permission to apply as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
And I'd like to work with the Sheriff's Office in finding funding from ICJI Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grants, which is the JAG grant, to prevent and control crime with the purchase of needed equipment for the Sheriff's Office.
Mr. President, I move we grant permission to apply as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
I'd also like to ask that the Circuit Court apply for the Indiana Supreme Court grant in $75,000 for administration of the Adult Guardianship Office Volunteer Advocate for Seniors and Incapacitated Adults to supplement the Wabash Center Guardianship Services and the MOU with Judge Person in the Circuit Court.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we grant permission to apply as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
And the last grant we're working on this week is Superior Court 5, the court reform grant from Indiana Supreme Court to update security cameras inside and outside of the courthouse square. And the quote for the project at the moment is $70,000, and there will be an in-kind match from the county budget.
Mr. President, I move we grant permission to apply as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
And grants approved, or accepted, I should say, EMA received funding from Duke Energy Foundation to supply the multi-hazard helmets that will be worn by the team of volunteers when they're dispatched to observe storm conditions, assist with flood flight operations or other incidents when necessary. And the award was $6,510, and there's no match to the county.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we grant permission to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
This last one's a information sort of type thing. The Health Department received their award letter from the Indiana Department of Health for the CY 2024, the Health First Indiana, in the amount of $2,102,508, with key performance indicators and other reports required by House Enrollment Act 1001-2023.
Mr. President, I move we grant permission to accept for the Health Department.
So, and do we need, this is one I had a question on, whether it's not technically a grant, so.
Just, okay, that's
All my
perfectly
motion
fine.
and good for the information.
All right,
Failure is not an option.
thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Unfinished or new business? Council?
Yeah, this one wasn't on the agenda, and that may be my fault. I can't quite remember how the communications took place, but there's no real reason to let it sit. And Gary Schroeder's in the audience if you happen to have any questions that he might need to answer. But back in '87 or '88, as part of the SIA process, the county jointly with the city of Lafayette obtained both a temporary and a permanent, I think it was a sewer easement. The quote-unquote temporary easement seems to have never been released, and so the city came to us and asked if we had any objection to releasing it. I looked at the paperwork. There's no reason we shouldn't do it. There's no real reason to make Mr. Schroeder wait around to get this cleaned up. So I would recommend that you pass a motion authorizing the president of the commission, of the board, to sign paperwork releasing the temporary joint sewer easement.
Anything else to add? No.
No, that's pretty much it, thank you.
All right. I will make that motion to authorize President Brown to sign the documentation to release that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the motion passes. Dr. Loomis could not be in attendance with us today, but he wanted me to report that the website, the page is up and running on our website for the Tippecanoe Regional Opioid Settlement Community Committee, and it has information basically pertaining to grant availabilities within that bucket of funds that have come back to the county. So if you go to our website at www.tippecanoe.in.gov and scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, you'll be able to find information about that committee and those funds. It looks like we have reports on file from Mail and Duplicating, the Building Commission, and the County Public Library, as well as the Treasurer. All of those reports will be available in our office immediately following the meeting. Public comment. Good morning, Rhonda.
Good morning. I would like to thank you all for taking the opioid settlement funds so seriously. I know that it's creating a lot of work for some people, but it's so important, and I'm so grateful for our community and you all for doing the right thing. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Any other public comment? Okay, final motion.
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.